Alrighty folks, today's the day that we take out the bog and we're gonna put in a new one. The first thing I see that filled with this bog is there appears to be about 2 feet of pea gravel in it. And the problem with putting pea gravel in a bog system is it's super hard to clean, and eventually it'll just cake up with all the muck. It's doing its filtration work like it's supposed to, but it's almost impossible to clean. If this is installed correctly, there is a vault here, a snorkel, and then there's a centipede in there that distributes the water. Typically well, this is not something I came up with. We don't spec these ourselves. We call Aquascape. We say, hey, we have a 16 or a 20 by 20 pond. It has so many square feet of surface area. They ask a few more questions, and I know that this pond has a lot of fish in it as well as ducks, and that all increases on the, you need a bigger and a more active filtration system to handle that waste load. All of that factors in there. So they're gonna ask those questions and they tell us, here's how big your filtration system needs to be. So many aqua blocks, so many inches of this kind of gravel, so many inches of that kind of gravel. But the smallest gravel that belongs in a bog system is a 2B, which is like an inch to 3/4, I believe. In the new bog system, there's going to be 18 inches of a 5 to 6 inch oversized gravel, and then there's going to be 18 inches of a 3 to 4 inch gravel, and then there's going to be 18 inches of a 2B gravel. What that allows us to do is every spring we can come in, we can drop a clean out pump into a vault like this, and we can reverse flush it. We can pump water down through there and then pump it out, and that just rinses out this whole system. Something like this, because of how difficult it is to clean, eventually it just plugs up to the point where it's no longer effective at all. I'm also seeing that there's not very much plant life in here. That's another thing that we're going to do with the new bog system. We're going to plant it up real heavy with plants like pickerel plant, and there's another list. That's also a list of plants that I get from Aquascape. The plan of attack here, we're going to scoop all of this out. We have a big truck out here. We have pretty tight access back through there, but we'll make it work. We're gonna haul out all the old gravel. We're gonna save some of this rock work. I don't know if they have one piece of liner here. If this whole thing is one piece of liner, I'm gonna need to cut it and seam it. If there is enough of a grade change, maybe I can do an overlap with our piece of liner. So remains to be seen what we're gonna find, but plan of attack is to pull all of this stuff out without putting giant holes into a liner that we may need. So let's start digging. We find the coolest things. We're tearing out this bog. In here is a little baby catfish. It's a catfish. I don't know what kind of catfish, but how he is living in the bottom of this muck, I cannot comprehend. Now you guys saw what that looked like before. He must have been living, I don't know where he was living. In the aqua blocks? Tell me what kind that is. Channel cat?
Probably.
Flathead?
Who knows?
Mud cat? I don't know.
I don't know, give them new life in the other pond.
Yeah, dude, that's cool. That's the coolest thing I've found. It's a baby catfish. Oh, well, we're gonna...
Think he'll survive?
He seems fairly lively. Dude, that is cool. Well, after much digging for many days, we finally have a giant hole here, which is the filtration system for the pond. Now, the first thing you'll notice is it's a lot bigger than what was in, and whenever we spec one of these projects, we take measurements of the pond. There's a couple different measurements that Aquascape asks for. One of the ones is surface area, square feet of water on the top, and then also about how many gallons of water the system is. I actually don't do that. Our distributor, Aquascape distributor, does that math for me. But what we do, we get those numbers and then we call Aquascape and we say, hey, what size filtration is needed for this pond? And then they give us those numbers. So that's how we come up with this size. But this is what's needed. So you can see that not only was there a bunch of pea gravel in the other system, which is very difficult to clean and then eventually plugs up and renders the whole filtration system ineffective, but it was also not nearly large enough. The next thing I want to point out is that typically when we put these in, so this is the system. This comes from the pump and the skimmer, and it shoots water in here, and then this centipede module helps distribute it evenly throughout the bog. And that snorkel is simply a clean out to drop in a clean out pump. So this water is filtering from the bottom up, and then every year, depending, some of the larger filtration systems we do like every 2 or 3 years. But what we do, we shut it down and we pump it out. We drop a pump down that vault down to the bottom. We pump it out, and then we use high volume, like a 2 or 3 inch line, and just blast the water down. This is reverses the flow that you typically have. Typically water is flowing from bottom to top. Now water is rushing in from top to bottom, and that rinses the dirt and the debris out of the gravel and washes it down into the centipede module, which goes over to the snorkel, and the pump will pump it out. And you just kind of rinse until it starts to run clear. So that's how you maintain these systems. And that's why it's so important to have the right size of gravel. If you have 2 feet of pea gravel in there, it's almost impossible to rinse that. So what we do, this system, as per Aquascape spec, has 18 inches of 5 and 6 inch cobblestone, and then it has 18 inches of this stone, which is 2 and 3 inch, and then there's 18 inches of 2B, which is I think 1 inch. So those are the layers. The other thing I want to point out is typically when we excavate, we'll trench a trench down through the middle. That's the depth of this centipede, so that it sits down in a ditch. This is State College, Pennsylvania, and we have massive ledges of limestone down there that made excavating extremely difficult. And so all I did was sink the snorkel down in, so that's the lowest point, and rather than sinking this down into the dirt, I'll have it setting on top. We'll fill gravel in up to here, and then our aqua blocks will go on top of that. I would be reluctant to do this, but we maintain hundreds of features, and we have a few features out that were built this way, and we have not noticed any. They clean well, they work well, they function great. So I know, and we've been maintaining that pond for 20 years. So I know from past experience that this does work. It probably makes rinsing a little bit more difficult because we only have one spot that's lower than all the rest. If this whole thing was sunk down, all the water that's running into here would go into this ditch and run down into there. So it probably is going to be harder to clean, and the gravel that goes down below here is not going to be part of filtration. The filtration is going to happen from here up. But we're plenty good on filtration. I know because we've put these in before like this, I know that they work, and we've seen it work over the last 20 years. So it's not typically how I do, but given the difficulties of the excavation, we had to figure out a different way. So that's why these are this way. So the plan now is I'm gonna bring in cobble. Only reason I have a little bit of small stuff down in here is because I wanted it to level out that snorkel there. So now I'm gonna bring in that 5 and 6 inch cobble up to this height, level it out nice and level, and then I'm gonna lay my aqua blocks on top of this, put in the pad, and then we're gonna start doing our layers of gravel until we reach the top.